everyone. Welcome to a little series I'm going to do on the ride cymbal, particularly as it pertains to some techniques, some different sounds and textures and colors that relate to basically mostly straight ahead, but just jazz in general. And I wanted to shoot this as kind of a way to commemorate a new relationship I've got going with Sabian cymbals. I got a couple new Sabians here that I'm playing for this video. This is a 20-inch Vanguard HH. This is a Manhattan Jazz HHS. I got some Manhattan Jazz hi-hats as well. I've been a fan of their cymbals, been playing them off and on for quite a while, so I'm excited to get a chance to put some of these up on YouTube and play some while I go on the road. So I thought it might be nice to dig into all the different colors and sounds and techniques that come with trying to get a good ride cymbal sound. Something that we're forever talking about, how it all stems from the ride cymbal and all that. And either whether they're coming through my private studio or they're coming through at jazzdrummersresource.com, or I just see guys around playing, I'll see some stuff and I'll think like, man, if I could just say one or two little things, I could totally hook up their ride cymbal approach. So I'm going to kind of break this down over the course of several lessons. So let's dive in. The first thing we're going to address in this video, or what we're going to address in this video, is simply going to be a handful of different ride cymbal techniques that I think work well for playing swing or playing jazz. So let's start with what I use as my technique. Now I get asked this a lot because at first glance it kind of looks like a weird technique that I use, but it's really not that weird at all. So I want to kind of break down what I'm doing. First of all, what I'm trying to do is, because I spend so much time on the ride cymbal, because I'm trying to dig in so much and get a nice full fat sound, I don't want to wear out the smaller muscle groups. I want to use a larger muscle group. So for me, I like to use more of a forearm rotation. The same way that I rotate my forearm here on the snare drum, I'm basically doing the same thing on the ride cymbal, to the point that I can go back and forth from the ride cymbal to the snare drum without much of this moving at all, which also helps in terms of ergonomics and trying to minimize motion. For me, things like that are pretty easy to play. I'm not moving around a lot, so I'm trying to keep my elbow by its side and stick my arm out and then just kind of rotate like that. And the same thing goes no matter which cymbal I'm playing, if I've got a third cymbal over here. So I'm trying to rotate my wrist or my hand with my forearm. So in that position, I'm going to use a French grip. I'm going to put my thumb right on the top of the stick, find a nice spot on the cymbal to hit, and then from here, I'm going to use my forearm to lift my wrist, not try to use my wrist. That allows me to get a nice big full sound without much effort, right? These muscle groups are way better at giving high velocity and lots of volume than these. And then the other thing I'm doing is that I'm saving my fingers for the fast and delicate stuff. So I kind of think about making sure to supply the quarter notes with that kind of forearm rotation like this. And even there at fast tempos, it doesn't look like it's much, but that tiny little motion there is really still coming from that rotation. I'm not having to use my wrist and fingers, and that allows me to save them for when I want to play the inner beats. That allows me to get a nice big full sound of that, and I'm not working at all because I'm using a much bigger muscle group and I'm saving those. So that's the technique that I use, and like I said, I'm just using it on my main ride cymbal here, but to rotate over to the left ride cymbal, I'm going to use the same technique. All that's going to happen is how much I bend my wrist will basically, I'll allow that to kind of rotate over depending on what cymbal I'm using. So I'll just give you a quick example of that. So over there on my left right, I'm still doing it. I basically, the wrist bend isn't much, but I do need a little bit of wrist bend because like when you wave or start a car or turn a doorknob and that sort of stuff, for the most part, it's easier if there's a slight bend in the wrist for your forearm to kind of kick in, so that we're not using these tendons and ligaments and stuff to try to actually move the hand side to side. That's my technique. Let's explore some of the more common ones that you'll see other guys use. I call this one the wrist technique. It's just a silly little name for it so I can think about what muscle group is doing the heavy lifting. If you've been playing, if you're a wrist-oriented drummer, or you've been playing marching band or whatever, and you have a lot of stuff together in your wrists, this is probably a good go-to one. And you can pull it off pretty much with any grip. I'm going to kind of display it in the American grip because it's kind of right in between. And notice how, for the most part, I'm able to whittle down the entire ride cymbal stroke to just the wrist. So again, in terms of ergonomics, I don't have a lot of arms flailing around just trying to keep time. So in this position, I like that one because it really does help keep the rest of your body out of the equation, where you're not leaning forward, you're not engaging much of your upper body. You're allowing yourself to stay centered, and that makes a huge difference when you're trying to keep solid time. You're trying to feel things. So if you've got really good hands, your wrists are really together, that's a great one to use. And the same sort of thing, where that movement can transpose itself to any of the cymbals. That, to me, that's nice and a nice and easy one to use. So, and again, it works at a variety of tempos. It also gives you plenty of access to your fingers, and obviously you've already engaged your wrist, so you've got those muscle groups right at the ready for you. Now let's explore one of the other techniques I see people use. I call this one the lift technique. And it's the wrist technique, except to give it a little more propulsion. At the end of the stroke, I'm going to lift this stick up and get a higher swing out of it, if you will. So I'm going to go from the wrist technique to the lift. And you'll watch that as I get to each beats 1 and 3, at the end of that, I will lift up and give myself almost like a little kickstart into the next sequence of 3 strokes. So I'm going to start with wrist for 4 bars. So really the only difference there is you can see that the stick height comes up 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1. So between beats 3 and 4 and 2 and 3, as the 3-note sequence stops, I raise it up a little bit higher. It gives you more stick height to work with, and it really helps when you're playing faster tempos. Because again, you're giving yourself lots of stick height to work with. So that's what I call the lift technique, which is basically you've got the wrist technique going on. You just give yourself a little extra oomph to get those strokes out. It gives you a little more definition. Also then engages the arm and takes a little pressure off the wrists and fingers. Because if you ever counted how many times you hit a ride cymbal on a jazz gig, you'd probably be blown away at that number. It's got to be in the easily in the 4 figures, if not higher. So now let's look at a few other techniques that people use. This one I call the skip technique, and the way I see it is the tip of the stick skips across the actual surface of the cymbal. I've seen that one a lot. It provides a couple of cool things. One is because you're attacking the cymbal at basically 3 different spots, you're kind of spreading the cymbal out a little bit in terms of of getting some different textures and colors out of it. The other thing is you can do this thing, if you don't have to do it when you use the skip technique, but something I'll see a lot is you can start it like on beat 2 and 4, which is really where our 3-note pattern starts, right? On beats 2 and 4, you start with more of a French grip, and then as you skip across the cymbal, your arm rotates so that you kind of end in German grip. You can see that little rotation there where it starts here and then basically so that I don't have to move my arm across the stick, or excuse me, across the surface of the cymbal, I simply rotate my wrist, and as I rotate my wrist, I can create 3 attack points just simply with that rotation, and then we can get into a little kind of turning or circular motion, which really helps at a faster tempo to create that sort of spread sound where we get 3 different attacks across the instrument. The last technique was taught to me by Vernel Fournier. It's the one that he used. I don't see a lot of people use it, but it's cool. And I definitely went through a phase where I loved this technique. So I call it the Tick-Tock. So the Tick-Tock is simple, where you basically play back and forth between 2 different spots. Kind of similar to the skip one, except really you're just bouncing back and forth. So whichever technique you use, you can use German grip, you can use French grip, either of those grips, but you essentially just take 2 things, and your ride cymbal hand is essentially looking and acting like a metronome. Tick tock, tick tock. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Almost also like a windshield wiper. But all that still achieves the same effect that I talked about at the beginning of this video, which is keeping all of this centered, keeping your weight firmly in the seat and not allowing your upper body movements. We're trying to whip around the drums a bunch, not allowing any excess movement to slightly throw off our balance, because little things like that, as I said before, can really cause time issues. So what I did over the course of I don't know how many years is I messed around with all of these. And there are still, although I have kind of my go-to, I know how to use all these, and we'll use all these depending on all sorts of circumstances. Sometimes it's the cymbal. Sometimes it's sitting in, and for whatever reason, like the way that person sets up, I'm really close to the cymbal, and my thing looks more like that, so I kind of have to adjust. And also sometimes for my own sake, to not build monotony into my own time feel, I want things to kind of freshen up my own ride cymbal technique or ride cymbal approach. So spend some time messing around with all of those. Those are certainly not the only ways to play the ride cymbal. Those are just the most common ones that I see, that I've seen the masters use, and I've experimented with myself. So let's start there. Just play a bunch of different tempos and try all those techniques. You may find that you've got 2 or 3 that you like and you couldn't care for the other ones, or you may in this process find one that really suits you well. I think that's kind of the point, is to go through them all and find at least one, if not 2 or 3, that you really feel comfortable about using on gigs. Okay, so next up we're going to look at how you develop a sound and simple ways to think about phrasing the ride cymbal, which gets talked about a lot in these kind of like ethereal terms, but I'm going to try to get down to the nitty-gritty with it. Okay, see you on the next one. Good luck.